Anger promises strength, but in truth it only exposes weakness. It blinds the mind, poisons the heart, and leaves behind regret that no apology can erase. How many friendships, families, and lives have been broken by a single outburst? The Stoics called anger a kind of madness, a sickness of the soul that steals reason in an instant. Yet they also taught that freedom from anger is possible, not through luck, but through practice. Imagine living a life where no insult could shake you, no delay could disturb you, no provocation could control you. The question is, are you ready to learn how? To free yourself from anger, you must first see it clearly for what it is. Many people believe that anger is a sign of strength, that raising your voice or striking back shows power. The Stoics disagreed. Seneca called anger a temporary madness. Marcus Aurelius saw it as a failure to live according to reason. Anger does not make us strong, it makes us slaves to impulse. It clouds judgment and pushes us into actions we later regret. What looks like fire in the moment is only weakness revealed under pressure. Think about the times you have been angry. Did it ever leave you wiser? Did it ever solve the problem with clarity? Or did it usually make the situation worse, creating damage that took far longer to repair? The Stoics observed that anger turns us into what we despise. When someone wrongs us and we respond with rage, we mirror their ignorance instead of rising above it. The first step in overcoming anger is to strip it of its false mask. Do not admire it. Do not call it passion or strength. See it as a loss of control, as weakness, as a small death of reason. When you can look at anger not as a weapon, but as a disease, you begin to loosen its grip. The wise man is calm, not because he feels nothing, but because he refuses to let destructive emotions guide him. Once you understand that anger is a weakness, you will stop giving it the honor of ruling your life. Anger always carries a cost, and it is heavier than we realize in the moment. A single outburst can undo years of trust. Words spoken in rage cannot be pulled back once they leave your mouth. Actions taken in fury can leave scars far deeper than the original offense. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself that when we act in anger, we harm ourselves more than we harm the one who offended us. The injury to our peace, our clarity, and our dignity is greater than whatever wrong was done to us. Think about the countless lives altered by moments of anger, friendships ending after harsh words, families divided after years of bitterness, even nations at war because leaders could not restrain their tempers. Anger spreads destruction like fire in dry grass. What begins as a spark quickly consumes everything in its path. And when the flames die down, all that remains is regret. The Stoics urged us to remember that every moment given to anger is stolen from peace. When your mind is consumed with rage, you cannot think clearly, you cannot love freely, you cannot live fully. You become a prisoner of the very emotion you believe is making you powerful. Seneca wrote that anger leaves nothing untouched. It burns both the victim and the one who holds it. To live without anger is not only about avoiding harm to others, it is also about preserving yourself. The price of anger is too high, and it is paid by your own soul. When you see how much it costs, you begin to question whether it is worth the smallest place in your life. If anger is to be overcome, it must first be recognized at its beginning. The Stoics advised us to watch the mind carefully, to see the first stirrings before they grow into storms. Triggers are often small, a careless insult, a delay in plans, the sting of being ignored. On their own, they are light as feathers. But when you grasp them with pride and feed them with stories, they become heavy as stone. Awareness is the difference between carrying the feather and being crushed by the stone. Marcus Aurelius trained himself to expect difficulties each day. He reminded himself in the morning that he would meet selfish, impatient, or unkind people. By preparing his mind, their behavior did not catch him by surprise. He already knew such things were part of life. When you expect challenges, you're less likely to be thrown into anger when they appear. Think about your own life. What moments set you off? Traffic jams, criticism, betrayal, someone wasting your time. Each person's triggers are different, but the process is the same. The spark of irritation appears, and if left unchecked, it bursts into anger. To master anger, you must learn to notice the spark before it becomes flame. This is not about denying feelings, but about seeing them clearly. If you can pause long enough to say, "This is irritation rising in me," you have already weakened its hold. Awareness creates a choice. Without awareness, anger controls you. With awareness, you control it. The first skill of the Stoic is not to fight anger when it is raging, but to catch it at the gate before it enters the mind and takes command. One of the most powerful tools the Stoics taught for dealing with anger is the simple act of delay. Seneca advised that when you feel provoked, do not speak, do not act, do not even let your face reveal your feelings. Wait. Anger is like a fire fed by sudden air. If you cover it and let it starve, it dies out quickly. To pause, even for a few breaths, is to deny anger its greatest weapon, speed. Think about the last time you reacted instantly to offense. Perhaps you shouted, sent a harsh message, or slammed a door. In the heat of the moment, it feels like release, but what follows is regret. If instead you had waited, breathed, and given space for the first surge of rage to pass, your words and actions would have been wiser. Delay is not weakness. It is strength disguised as patience. Seneca suggested counting to 10, or simply walking away for a moment. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself that nothing external has power over the mind unless the mind allows it. By waiting, you give your reason time to regain command. You move from being a slave to impulse into a master of yourself. This practice can be applied everywhere. When someone insults you, do not respond immediately. When frustration rises in traffic, take a slow breath before letting words escape your lips. Each pause is like a shield against harm. The Stoics knew that time is a healer of many emotions, and anger weakens quickly when left unfed. To pause is to protect yourself. It is the first step toward calm and the clearest sign of wisdom. The Stoics believe that much of our anger comes not from what happens, but from how we choose to see it. An insult, for example, only has power if we decide it does. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself that people act out of ignorance, habit, or weakness, not because they truly know us or our worth. When someone mocks you, it says more about their character than about yours. If you can change the way you view the moment, you can change your reaction. Imagine walking down a street and a child shouts something rude. Do you feel the same anger you would if an adult said it? Likely not. Why? Because you view the child as too young to know better. The Stoics suggest we extend that same understanding to all people. Many act like children in wisdom, moved by impulses they cannot control. Why take offense at their ignorance? Reframing is not about excusing bad behavior. It is about refusing to hand your peace to it. If someone cuts you off in traffic, you can tell yourself they are careless and feel rage. Or you can say, perhaps they are rushing to help someone, and let it pass. The event is the same, but the meaning is yours to choose. Marcus wrote that the soul becomes dyed by the color of its thoughts. If your perspective is shaped by resentment, anger follows. If your perspective is shaped by reason and patience, peace follows. To master perspective is to master anger. The world will never stop offering you reasons to be upset, but you always have the power to decide how you see them. Anger does not come only from what people do to us, but from the stories we tell ourselves about what their actions mean. When someone ignores your message, The story may be, they don't respect me. When a colleague interrupts you, the story may be, they're trying to humiliate me. These narratives fuel the fire of anger far more than the events themselves. The Stoics taught that we must take command of these inner stories because they shape our emotions more than reality does. Marcus Aurelius often reminded himself that people act as they believe best, even when they are wrong. Instead of saying, "They insulted me on purpose," he would frame it as, "They acted out of ignorance." This shift takes away the sting. Seneca urged that we ask ourselves, what proof do I really have that this was meant as harm? Often the answer is little to none. Our minds add weight where there may be none at all. Think of betrayal. It is easy to replay it as a deliberate wound, fueling endless bitterness. But if you shift the story to, "They acted from weakness, not malice," it loses its sharpness. The action remains wrong, but it no longer owns your peace. This practice is not about denying reality, but about refusing to let imagination become your enemy. You can choose the narrative, either one that enslaves you to anger or one that frees you into calm. The Stoics remind us that the mind is the ultimate storyteller. If you write your story with understanding instead of resentment, you weaken anger at its roots. In the end, the tale you tell yourself decides whether you live in turmoil or tranquility. The Stoics knew that the mind and body are deeply connected, and one can be used to calm the other. Anger often shows itself first in the body: clenched fists, tight chest, quick breath, a rush of heat to the face. If you can master these signals, you weaken the storm before it grows. The body becomes the doorway back to calm. Seneca suggested standing still when provoked, for movement feeds agitation. Marcus Aurelius noted the power of steady breathing and controlled posture. When you slow your breath, the fire inside loses fuel. When you hold yourself upright and firm, you remind your mind that you are in command. Even something as simple as unclenching your hands sends a message to your emotions. I will not let this rule me. Think about the last time you were angry. Did your body feel calm? Or was it racing as if preparing for battle? That is because anger is an ancient reflex born from survival instincts. But in the world we live in now, most threats are not life or death. They are words, delays, disappointments. If you respond with the same bodily fury as if facing a wild animal, you turn small matters into great suffering. The Stoic trains the body to train the mind. Breathe slowly when insulted. Be still when provoked. Keep your voice level when you want to shout. Each of these is a small victory. Over time, they build into strength. True power is not in raising your hand in anger, but in lowering it with control. The calm body becomes the ally of the calm mind, and together they defeat the hold of rage. The Stoics taught that compassion is one of the most effective antidotes to anger. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself that people act as they do because they believe it is right, even if they are wrong. Their ignorance, weakness, or pain drives them more than malice. If you can see their actions as the product of limitation rather than evil, it is easier to respond with patience instead of fury. Imagine someone speaking rudely to you. The natural reaction is to fight back, to match their harshness with your own. But what if instead you saw them as a person carrying invisible burdens? Perhaps they are tired, hurt, or afraid. Compassion does not excuse their behavior, but it explains it. And when you understand, you no longer feel the same burning need to strike back. Seneca wrote that the wise man seeks to cure, not to punish. To cure is to see the other as human, struggling in the same flawed world we all share. When someone lashes out, you can view them as sick with anger, much like you once were. Instead of catching the sickness yourself, you remain steady and try to help, or at the very least you refuse to spread the infection further. Compassion turns the enemy into a teacher. They show you what it looks like to be ruled by anger, and you decide not to follow. In this way, compassion is strength. It does not mean letting others walk over you, it means choosing to remain free from hatred. By training yourself to see the pain beneath another's anger, you rob your own anger of its fuel. Revenge is one of anger's favorite companions, but the Stoics warn that it is nothing more than a chain tying us to the very harm we want to escape. Seneca wrote that the best form of revenge is not to resemble the one who wronged you. Marcus Aurelius urged himself to remain upright, even when others were crooked. To answer insult with insult or injury with injury only multiplies the pain and keeps you trapped in the cycle of anger. Think of a quarrel where harsh words are exchanged. One person speaks in rage, the other fires back even harder, and soon both are wounded far more deeply than the original offense could ever justify. What started small becomes an endless exchange, neither side willing to end it, because both believe they must win. But what is won? Nothing but bitterness. The Stoics saw this clearly. Revenge does not restore dignity, it erodes it further. Consider how fleeting satisfaction feels after striking back. For a moment you feel powerful, but soon guilt, shame, or emptiness take its place. True strength lies not in retaliation, but in restraint. When you choose not to mirror the wrongdoer, you free yourself from their influence. You remain your own master rather than letting their behavior dictate yours. Anger insists that justice means payback, but Stoic wisdom teaches that justice is to live rightly, regardless of how others act. When you rise above revenge, you not only deny anger its fuel, you also preserve your character. To let go of revenge is to let go of chains. It is to choose peace over endless war within your own heart. Much of human anger comes from resisting what cannot be changed. We curse the rain, we rage at illness, we seethe at delays. Yet Marcus Aurelius reminded himself that the universe follows its own order, and our task is not to fight it, but to live in harmony with it. To grow angry at what lies beyond control is like shouting at the ocean for its waves. The sea does not care, and your voice only exhausts you. The Stoics believed in the acceptance of fate, what they called amor fati, the love of one's lot. This does not mean enjoying every hardship, but understanding that life brings both fortune and misfortune, and both are natural. If a storm ruins your plans, if illness slows your body, or if the world refuses to obey your wishes, anger adds nothing but suffering. Acceptance, on the other hand, brings calm. Think of sitting in traffic. You cannot move the cars, you cannot change the situation. But you can decide what story you tell yourself in that moment. You can curse and pound the wheel, or you can use the time to breathe, to think, or even to reflect on gratitude. The external is fixed, but your inner world is still your own. Anger against fate is wasted fire. The Stoics taught that wisdom is knowing what belongs to you and what does not. Your choices, your judgments, your actions. These are yours. Weather, chance, and time are not. Once you accept this, anger loses much of its ground. Peace is found not in control, but in surrender to what is beyond control. The Stoics practiced a discipline called premeditatio malorum, preparing the mind by imagining difficulties before they arrive. Seneca advised that we should rehearse insults, delays, losses, and frustrations in our thoughts, so that when they appear in reality, they do not surprise us. Anger thrives on shock. When something unexpected happens, the mind shouts, "This should not be." But if you have already pictured it, anger has little room to grow. Marcus Aurelius began his mornings reminding himself he would meet people who were ungrateful, arrogant, or selfish. By expecting it, he disarmed the sting. If someone acted rudely, he could say to himself, "I knew this would come, and I knew I could endure it." The event became lighter, easier to carry. Anger loses its force when the mind has already prepared for the blow. Think of how a soldier trains. They do not only practice in safe conditions, they prepare for the chaos of battle so that when it comes, they are steady. In the same way, the Stoic trains the soul. If you imagine that a friend may one day disappoint you, that a stranger may insult you, or that plans may fall apart, then when it happens, you are ready. Instead of rage, you respond with calm, because your mind already walked the path. This practice is not about pessimism, but resilience. To rehearse difficulties is to strengthen your spirit against them. By practicing in advance, you weaken anger's surprise attack. You teach yourself that nothing is truly unexpected, and what is not unexpected cannot control you. In this way, preparation becomes the shield against fury. The Stoics also placed great value on daily reflection as a way to master anger. Marcus Aurelius filled his private writings with reminders, questions, and observations, not for others, but for himself. Seneca described examining his conscience each night, reviewing what he had done well, what he had done poorly, and where he could improve. This habit turns every day into a lesson and keeps anger from becoming a permanent guest in the soul. When you reflect on moments of anger, you create distance between yourself and the emotion. You can ask, what triggered me today? Was my response useful, or did it add harm? How could I have acted with greater calm? Instead of condemning yourself, you treat the experience as a teacher. Yesterday's outburst becomes tomorrow's wisdom. Think about writing down even a few lines before sleep. Perhaps you note that you grew impatient with someone at work, or you snapped at a friend. By capturing it on paper, you make it real, and by examining it with reason, you begin to loosen its hold. Over time, you will see patterns, and with patterns come solutions. The Stoics believe that progress is not made in leaps but in steady steps. Reflection is one of those steps. Each night, you polish the mirror of the mind so it shows you more clearly. And with clarity, anger has less space to hide. The goal is not perfection, but progress. Fewer moments of rage, quicker returns to calm, and a stronger habit of self-control. Reflection makes you both the student and the teacher of your own life, and in that process, anger is steadily replaced with wisdom. The highest form of freedom from anger comes when you rise above insults altogether. The Stoics taught that no word, no sneer, no mockery can truly touch your dignity unless you allow it. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself that others may say what they please, but he still has power over how he receives it. If someone calls you a name, does that name suddenly become true? If someone mocks your choices, does their mockery change the value of your path? Only if you surrender your peace to them. Think of a man walking with calm purpose. Onlookers may laugh, shout, or point, but his stride is unchanged. He knows who he is, and their noise is nothing more than passing wind. This is the image of Stoic strength. The insult is only sound. The meaning it carries comes from you. If you treat it as empty air, then it vanishes into nothing. Seneca said that it is a greater victory to ignore an insult than to strike back. To respond is to give it life, to let it shape your mood and your actions. To remain unmoved is to declare that your dignity cannot be purchased or stolen. This is not coldness, it is confidence rooted in reason. When you live above insults, you step into true independence. No one can drag you into their anger if you refuse to join them. You no longer bend with every careless word or cruel remark. Instead, you remain steady, like a rock in the sea, against which waves crash but cannot move. This is the freedom the Stoics sought, a life where your peace rests only in your own hands. Calmness, the Stoics believed, is not weakness, but the greatest form of strength. Anyone can shout, strike, or lose control. It takes no discipline to give in to rage, but to remain composed when provoked, to keep the mind steady in storms. That is the mark of true mastery. Marcus Aurelius wrote that the best revenge is not to be like the wrongdoer. To remain calm when others rage is to show a power they cannot touch. Picture a leader facing harsh criticism. One path is to explode, to defend pride with anger, and in doing so, to lose the respect of everyone watching. The other path is silence, measured words, or even a gentle response. In that moment, calmness commands far greater authority than anger ever could. People trust the one who cannot be shaken, because calmness signals control, and control signals wisdom. Seneca compared anger to a storm. It crashes with violence but soon passes, leaving destruction in its wake. Calmness, however, is like a steady sun. It gives life, clarity, and direction. To cultivate calm is to cultivate a force that lasts, not one that burns out quickly. This is why the Stoics trained daily in patience, reflection, and discipline. They knew that anger is easy, but calmness is rare, and therefore far more valuable. To never be angry again is not to be empty of emotion. It is to be full of strength, reason, and compassion, so that anger has no place to take root. Calmness is not the absence of fire, but the control of it, directing it into light instead of destruction. This, the Stoics taught, is the highest victory a person can achieve. If you found wisdom here, subscribe for more Stoic lessons to guide you towards strength, clarity, and peace.